I almost feel a little sense of relief, but I also feel that anticipation reaching a fever pitch. Down below, you'll see my last 2013 NFL mock draft. The draft is almost here. Thank God. I can't wait. I don't know about you. Now, as far as this draft goes, I was supposed to do a 3-round mock draft. That's what I told you, factoring in trades, whatever. I ended up only doing 2 rounds and only really factoring in trades from the first round. And the reason is this draft was very hard to predict. It was very hard to piece together a mock draft. Each time I did a mock draft over the past 2 months or so, I would do several copies of it before actually putting one out, just because I had such a hard time slotting people and figuring out who was going to go where, whose stock was rising, whose stock was falling. So this was a tough mock draft for me to do. I didn't go too crazy with the trades. I factored in a couple, like Detroit trading up to number 3 in this scenario because Joeckel was still on the board. To me, it's a possibility if Fisher ended up dropping to number 3 and Joeckel went number 1. I mean, it's so hard to predict. Jacksonville's a wild card to me at number 2. They could take Dion Jordan. They could take an offensive tackle. God only knows. You'll notice I had 3 offensive tackles going in the first 4 picks. I think that's an incredibly realistic scenario. You also notice that I had Tavon Austin going to Philadelphia at number 7. Nassib going number 8 to Buffalo. I guess I finally came on board. Some of the rumors talking about they love Nassib in Buffalo. His old coach Marone wants him there, whether it will be him or Barkley. And I ended up saying, he'll probably go with what he knows, which is Nassib. And you'll see other guys that rose and other guys that fell, like, for example, Dee Millner. His stock fell a little bit in my mock. Geno Smith, he could drop more than what I have him. I just had the Jets taking him at 13 because I do believe they would try to address quarterback early in this draft because otherwise, Sanchez, Garrard, McElroy, that's your quarterback battle? Some other players that rose a little bit, Sylvester Williams, Carradine, players that dropped. You'll notice one significant drop, and that is Sharif Floyd from Florida. And the reason I had this drop happen was because when you look at most of the teams in the top 10, a lot of them run a 3-4 defense, or if they're looking for a 4-3 player, they're not looking for a defensive tackle necessarily, except maybe the Oakland Raiders, who I had trading down to pick 5 and taking Lotulelei from Utah. I do think there's a significant chance that a Sharif Floyd could drop quite a bit. If you sit there and say to me, well, you don't know what you're talking about, that's not going to happen. You might be right. Or I could be spot fucking on. The point is that this draft is incredibly hard to predict. Based off of, and I've got it written down here, so that way I can kind of look at it. In terms of my big winners from this draft, to me, Philadelphia in this scenario would be a big winner, getting Tavon Austin and E.J. Manuel. Another team that would be a pretty big winner would be maybe Atlanta trading up to pick 12 to get Dee Millner. I would look at a team, maybe somebody like the Jets, frankly. Even though I wouldn't agree with them taking Barkevious Mingo, I think they have bigger needs than a pass rusher. When your team sucks and you need to rebuild, you start rebuilding on the offensive side around a young quarterback. Getting Geno Smith at pick 13, I think, would be a good deal. Cincinnati, I think, could potentially be in a position to do really well for themselves, as could St. Louis, as could Minnesota. The teams with 2 first-round picks, mind you. So take a look at my last mock draft down below. Let me know what you think about my last mock draft. It's going to be a crazy 3 days this weekend. I'll put it to you that way. A lot of unpredictability. I'll be curious to see how close I was with players getting picked by specific teams or in a specific spot. I'll be very curious to see how this all turns out by Saturday night. I really will.